Hello to everybody. Today we are going to be looking at surface area with nets. So we've already learned that nets means that you're taking a 3D shape and making it flat. You're unfolding it. Now surface area, that might be a new word. Surface area means the area on the outside of a 3D shape. So if you look at this 3D shape, for example, can you imagine that that's like a Kleenex box on its side? So the surface area would be how much cardboard you would need to make the Kleenex box happen. It's the area of each side of the Kleenex box added up. Now, sometimes it's hard to look at a 3D shape like this and imagine all of those different faces because some of them you can't really see. So a strategy that they use is to unfold it into a net and then to find the area of each component from there and add them all up. So the tricky part is just determining what numbers go with what. The first thing that I like to do when I'm finding the area of a net is to make sure that I have all the necessary sides labeled. In problem 1, I can see that they're all rectangles, which means I need to find the length and the width, or the base and the height, depending on which words you like to use. I need to find the length and the width of each rectangle. I'm going to label that first. Well, the one that's over here, the rightmost one, and maybe I'll color these in, this purple one, that one is actually kind of obvious. I can see that it goes with 6 and 3. So that one I'm not going to worry about. Now, how about this next one? That doesn't really have any numbers right next to it, but I can see that this side must be a 2 because there's a 2 pointing to it. And this side must be a 6 because that 6 slides over here and it's the same as that 6. So now I have my purple shape and my orange shape labeled. How about the next shape? Make it green. Well, I can slide my 6 over again, and I can see that this side must be 6. And then I can slide my 3 up and say that this side is 3. So that side is 6 by 3. All right, I have 3 shapes left. I have this yellow one. Well, again, I can slide my 6 all the way down and I can say that that side must be 6. But how about the top? They haven't really given me any information about the top. Well, what's interesting about a rectangular prism is that there always has to be 2 sides that are exactly the same as each other. So the purple and the green are the same. I can actually change the shading to show that both of these purple shapes are the exact same. They're across from each other on the Kleenex box. Now, which other shape do I think is the same as my yellow? I think it's going to be the orange. So I think now I can say my 2 oranges are the same, so this is also a 2. Now I have my 2 white shapes remaining, and I think those are going to be the same as well. So let's see if we can figure out what those side lengths are. So these 2 are going to be the same also. It looks like this side is worth 2. And then my 3, I can slide up and say the other side is 3. Which means that the other one must also be 2 by 3. Now I need to find the area of each of these shapes. What color will stand out? I'll use black. So let's do the purples first. 6 times 3 is 18, and that means my other purple is also going to be 18. Now how about my oranges? 6 times 2 is 12, and that means my other orange is 12 too. And now my greens. 3 times 2 is 6, and that means that's going to be 6 too. My last step is to add up all those numbers, and I like to add them in pairs. So I like to do 6 plus 6, 12 plus 12, and 18 plus 18, and then add up my answers. going to be 12 plus 24 plus 36. Add those all up. And remember, you're allowed to use a calculator. So as long as you have the work written down, you can now open up your calculator and say 12 plus 24 plus 36 equals 72. So you wouldn't even have known that I used a calculator. So then the answer would be 72. And what would be my units? Well, surface area has the word area in its name for a reason. Area is always units squared. So is surface area, 72 centimeters squared. They also want us to give the name of the shape. So first of all, do we think this is a pyramid or a prism? Remember that a pyramid is made up of triangles besides the bases, and a prism is made up of rectangles besides the bases. This one looks like it's made up of rectangles. So this is going to be a prism. But what shaped prism is it? What's the shape of the bases? Rectangular. It's a rectangular prism. Gonna run out of room and I'm missing letters. Rectangular prism. I'm going to show you in the picture why it's okay to assume that two sides would be exactly the same. And picture a Kleenex box while I'm doing this. If I look, the top and the bottom, those are my green sides from my drawing. Those are exactly the same. They have to be the same. Otherwise, the Kleenex box wouldn't look like a perfect rectangle on all of the sides. So those are my greens. My purples would be these big long sides on the front and the back. So we can see this one in front, and then there'd be a perfectly matching one on the back that I can't really color in without distorting the view, but there'd be a matching one. Just look at a Kleenex box. You could see that across from it back here, there has to be another side that's exactly the same. And then the same goes for the orange sides. There's one here, and there's one here that has to be exactly the same. So that works for rectangular prisms. They have to have a pair. See if you could try number 2. Pause the video and see if you could do all the work. Okay, hopefully you're ready to try. And they kind of already have it shaded for us which pairs are going to go together. So the darkest pair would be this guy and I don't like that, and this guy. Since they're all made up with rectangles, that's why I'm allowed to assume that these pairs exist. If any of these shapes were not rectangles, I wouldn't be able to assume it. Then I have this orange. It's going to go with this orange. And then I have this yellow. It's going to go with this yellow. If you think that's a clue that helps you and you want to redo your work, go ahead and pause the video and try it again. Okay, the next thing I want to do is label the numbers. So I might start over here with my yellows. I can see that this is a 5 because right above it, there's this arrow pointing down. 5 by 10, which means that the other yellow is also going to be 5 by 10. My purple, it's already labeled 20 on the bottom. And then the side, I can see that this 10 is going to slide over. So it's going to be 20 by 10. If it's easier for you, you can actually find these areas as they go. So the yellows I can see are 50 right away because I'm doing 5 times 10. And the purple I know is 20 times 10. So that's 200. So I can fill that in on the other purple. Now my oranges, I know that this 20 is going to slide up. So I'm going to have 20 by 5. And that's 100, which means my other orange is also going to be 100. And then, like I said, I like to add them in pairs. So 50 plus 50, 100 plus 100, 200 plus 200. That's 100, 200, and 400 for a total of 700. So 700 centimeters squared. If you didn't remember units, go ahead and add those in now. And now for the name of the shape. Again, I know that this is going to be a prism because it's made up of rectangles. It's not made up of mostly triangles. But what type of prism? Just like problem 1, this is another rectangular prism. There's no other shapes involved. Nothing else to name it by. Let's take a look at number 3. And number 3 has decimals, so you're definitely going to want to be using a calculator for this. In a prism, you can assume that the bases are exactly the same. So I can assume that this yellow guy and this yellow guy are exactly the same. And there's 2 bases in a prism. But since this is not made up of entirely rectangles, I see that there's some triangles involved. We can't assume that the rest of the sides are all equal. This is a triangular prism that looks like this. So I'm not going to draw it perfectly, but I want to give you an idea of what it looks like. And if you ever were wondering how to draw a prism, this is how you would do it. So something like that. And what I've colored in so far would be these 2 bases. These yellows have to be the same because a prism has to have 2 bases that are exactly the same. But the rest of the rectangles, we don't know if they're going to be the same or not. So we really are going to have to think about the rest of the rectangles. What I would do is I would start by finding the area of the triangles. So in order to find the area of the triangles, we have to do 1/2 times base times height. Look at those triangles. Where do you see the right angle? See if you could find the area of one of these triangles. Pause the video. Let's look. The right angle is right here. So the 2 numbers that make that up are 4 and 9. I'm not going to use the 4.5 and the 7.2 at all right now. Maybe I need them later, but I don't need them right now. So for the area formula, I'm going to do 1/2 times 4 times 9. I could start by taking half of 4, which is 2, and then multiply by 9 to get 18. Now I know that both triangles have an area of 18. Okay, 1 step done. Now how about all of these rectangles? Can you start by finding the area of this rectangle? It has both numbers specified on it, so it should be an easier one to start with. Find the 2 numbers and multiply them on your calculator. Okay, so for this rectangle, we have to do 8.1 times 4.5. And I definitely want to use a calculator for this. So 8.1 times 4.5 is 36.45. How about the middle rectangle? It's not going to let me change colors while I have the calculator open. Okay, so the middle rectangle, I can't say for sure that it's the same as the other rectangle, and it really doesn't look like it would be either. See if you could find the area of this green rectangle. Use your calculator and pause the video. So the 2 numbers that I ended up using for this would be 8.1 from right here and 9.0. And I typed that into my calculator and I got 72.9. All right, you have 1 rectangle left. See if you can pause the video and find the area of this last rectangle. For this last rectangle, you would do 8.1 times 7.2, and that comes out to 58.32. See if you could remember the last step for finding surface area and do that last step. Pause the video if you need more time. The last step is to add up all of these numbers, and only 2 of them were the same. Only the 2 triangles were the same. So I need to do 18 plus 18 plus 36.45 plus 72.9 plus 58.32. Add those all up, and you get 203.67. Remember, put your units on centimeters squared. Area is always centimeters squared. And then what shape is this? Well, we've talked a lot about how it's a prism already because it has two bases. But can you come up with the first word? This is a triangular prism because the bases are triangle shapes. The sides that are not rectangles are made of triangles. That's how you know it's a triangular prism. Okay. So, let's see. I'm deciding if I want to show you guys the answers to these next ones or not. I think I'm going to leave 4 and 5 for you guys to do, but I am going to give you some tips. So I'd write down the tips as you go. For the two triangles, those are always the hardest to find, and you have to remember that you need the right angle. So here are the right angles on the triangles. That means that these two sides come together to make the right angle. I can see that the 4 goes with the right angle, but on the top one, there's no number labeled on the bottom. So you're going to have to come up with what that is. And then you'd have to find 3 rectangles areas as well. For the triangles, make sure you're using the formula area equals 1/2 times base times height. Write that down so that way it's there for you when you're ready to do number 4. All right, so I'm going to leave you to that one. And then on number 5, they don't really give you a lot of information, so I want to help you interpret this one before you get started. So write in these clues as I give them to you. First of all, we have this shape in the middle, and they only tell you what one of the sides are. When they do that, sometimes they want you to assume it's a square. So I'm going to go ahead and label all of these sides 3. That's going to help you. Then we have the triangle to deal with. And look, here's my right angle. So you have to look at what numbers you need for the right angle. Once you get one of the triangles, you can assume that all of the triangles are exactly the same because they haven't given us any information otherwise. So all of these triangles, I know I'm kind of destroying my right angle markings, are the same. So once you find one of them, you could fill it in for all 4. And let's write down that triangle formula again. Area equals 1/2 times base times height. So those are my clues. Make sure you have it written down for 4 and 5. For 6, we're going to do this one together. What I can see here is I can see that we have a shape in the middle. And then there's 3 sides. And they only have given us information for 1. But all 3 of these pink sides are going to be the same. So once we find one of these, we could put that answer on all 3. I'm going to start with the orange. It looks like my right angle meets with the 15.5 and the 17.9 on my orange shape. So I'm going to say area equals 1/2 times base times height. Area equals 1/2 times 15.5 times 17.9. Can you pause the video and type that into your calculator and see what you get? So when I'm typing that into my calculator, trying to move this over, instead of 1/2, I'm going to type 0.5 times 15.5 times 17.9, and I got 138.725. So that's what the orange shape is equal to. All right. And I might just draw an arrow in there because it's going to be hard to write that number in there. Now my purples. Well, what do I think about the purples? I see that my right angle is here, but they only gave me one of the numbers, the 16.4. So I have to use the clues I'm given. Do I think that the other line is worth 15.5 or 17.9? I think it's going to be 17.9 because that's the other outside of the triangle. 17.9. So for that one, I have to do area equals 1/2 times base times height. That's going to be area equals 1/2 times 16.4 times 17.9. Can you type that into your calculator and get an answer? You could pause the video. All right, and that equals 0.5 times 16.4 times 17.9. That's 146.78. Oh, I want the pen, hold on. Okay. And move back, please. Thank you. 146.78. But there's 3 of those pink sides. So in order to find all 3 of the pink sides, I could just multiply that by 3. So 146.78 times 3 is, oh, I never wrote times 3. Okay, equals 440.34. Okay, so I have my orange shape and I have my 3 pink shapes all combined. You can't really see that, so I'll circle it. What is my last step going to be? Do that last step. Pause the video. The last step would be to add them. So 138.725 plus 440 plus 34, and then we have to find what that equals. And I got 579.065, and that's going to be meters squared. What shape do you think this is going to be? Pause the video and see if you can guess. So since it's made up of triangles and not rectangles, I know it's going to be a pyramid. And then I don't see any shapes besides triangles. So the base is a triangle.